Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. So in Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, this was given by actually they never said that this is our hypothesis. ऐसा कुछ बोला नहीं कि hypothesis है, but based on what they commented, based on their research, this was later labeled as Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Although Whorf was the student of Edward Sapir, and they had similar observation with respect to the language. And बाद में जब उनकी स्टडी को, जब उनके ऑब्जर्वेशन को स्टडी किया गया, तो उसको बाद में एक टर्म दे दिया गया collectively that this is Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and which ultimately says that structure of the language determines or greatly influences the mode of thought and behavior characteristic of the culture in which it is spoken. मतलब कहना क्या चाह रहा है ये simply that the kind of language that we use, that basically influences how we think, or language influences our thought, and language, since it creates categories in the minds of the people. If you have seen the lectures wherein I was talking about cognitive anthropology, so in cognitive anthropology, the theories lecture, so I have told that cognitive anthropology का basic Sapir-Whorf hypothesis आता है कि that language creates categories in the minds of the people, and language decides how we are viewing the outer world. ठीक है, क्योंकि it's because of the categories that language creates in our mind, this makes us understand the outer world. तो अगर आप किसी को culture को समझना है, तो you should understand the language of that culture first. Only then you will be able to understand the native conceptual categories. Okay, so language influences the thought, and it helps determines how we are viewing the outer world. So this is what Sapir-Whorf hypothesis says. Okay, so if just to make you more clear, I have just written the statement that is of that was said by Benjamin Whorf and also Edward Sapir very separately. Okay, so I just want to read this statement. So Whorf proposes that we cut the nature up, organize it into concepts, and ascribe significances as we do, largely because we are parties to an agreement to organize it in this way. So he says that we are, and all the people speaking the same language, they are party to one agreement. They have decided that they are going to think like this. Okay, an agreement that holds throughout our speech community and is codified in the patterns of language. So we agree to use, or the agreement has been codified in the language. Okay, and this language is making us think in a particular manner. So this is what he wanted to say by this statement. Okay, then Edward Sapir, he also says that language is a force in itself. Okay, it's a force that makes us think in a particular manner. He says that human beings are very much at the mercy of a particular language, which has become the medium of expression for their society. Okay, real world is to large extent unconsciously built upon language habits of the group. So how the kind of language that we use is basically that helps us understand what the world outside is. हमें language सोचना सिखाता है. Okay, this is what they wanted to say. So their approach is also called as linguistic determinism. That means language determines the native conceptual categories, or language determines how we think and how we view this outer world. Okay, so this is what Sapir-Whorf hypothesis says, and they wanted to prove it, and there have been several examples to justify this approach also, this hypothesis. For example, one study of Whorf, Benjamin Whorf, under the supervision of Sapir, because Benjamin Whorf was a student of Edward Sapir. So he studied Hopi language and also compared it with English language. So Hopi language को जब उन्होंने study किया, तो what he found was that कि Hopi language में there is no discreteness, there is absence of discreteness with respect to time and space. ठीक है, तो like and English or Euro-American language में what they observed was कि there is discreteness with respect to time and space. For example, English में there is like direction east, west, north, south. Okay, and with time also 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Some year is there, 1985, 1999, something like this. So they can be discrete about past, present, and future. And also they can be discrete about which direction they want to go, some place also. But this is completely absence in OP. So they can never be discrete about past, present, and future, or they only talk about present. ओके एंड दे कैन नेवर बी लाइक उनके लिए अगर ये बोलना हो कि कल कुछ ऐसा हुआ था, दे कैन जस्ट से कि यस समडे, मतलब और कभी आपने ऐसी बात की थी, बट दे विल नेवर बी एबल टू स्पेसिफाई व्हेन। ओके एग्जैक्ट टाइम कभी नहीं बता सकते, डिस्क्रीटनेस इज एब्सेंट। ओके एंड व्हाई, बिकॉज एंड दे कैन नेवर थिंक अबाउट, मतलब इवन दे डू नॉट थिंक लाइक दिस, they because this vocabulary for discreteness is absent in their language. This is what Whorf observed in Hopi. Okay, now next example that can be quoted here is the study of John Lucy with respect to Swedish and Finnish language. So he says that he found that Swedish and Swedish speaking people and Finnish speaking people or people belonging to Sweden and Finland working in the same place, same job, same regulation and same region. But what he found was that people speaking Finnish language, they have more accident, or there is a difference in the rate of job accident, and more in case of Finnish speaking people than Swedish people. So in that case he observed that Finnish language gives information only in 2 dimensions, while the Swedish language has or provides information or makes the individual thinks in 3 dimensions, and that's why Swedish people, they have less job accident or less rate of job accident. ओके क्योंकि वो लोग 3 डायमेंशनल सोच सकते हैं, बिकॉज उनकी लैंग्वेज में 3 डायमेंशनल कैटेगरीज के लिए वोकैबुलरी है, बट Finnish language में the categories are of 2 dimensions only, and that's why they are not able to think 3 dimensionally. Okay, this is what this was observed by John Lucy. Okay, one more example is very day to day example में भी आप relate कर सकते हो, और this has been also given by a scientist named as William Lutz. So he says that language can also be used to alter the perception of the people. कैसे, अगर आपके सामने कोई एक लैंग्वेज बोले तो उससे आपका परसेप्शन चेंज हो जाता है चीजों को देखने का. ओके, that again proves that कि language coerces your thought, or sorry, or language alters your thought or influences your thought. तो उन्होंने बताया कि like he quotes the word euphemism, use of euphemism, using the words that might shape the perception of the same phenomena in front of people. तो अगर मैंने आपको बोला फॉर एग्जाम्पल कि कंपनी बहुत लोगों को निकाल रही है, ओके, कंपनी ने बहुत लोगों को फायर कर दिया एंड ऑल दैट स्टफ, तो इन दैट केस यू विल फील दैट एवरीथिंग इज इन chaos. But what companies or what these corporations use is the word that is company is being downsized. Okay, that might not create that much of chaotic impact. Okay, the perception has been altered now. या फिर Uber, they do not use the word driver for their drivers. Okay, they use the word urban transport specialist. So this basically creates another perception, जैसे कि पता नहीं कौन सी जॉब होगी जिसमें बहुत सारे perks और privileges होंगे, or maybe Volkswagen, so they do not use the word automobile mechanic. What they use is automotive internist. Okay, और मे बी लाइक स्विगी जोमेटो आपने देखा होगा, तो वो ये नहीं बोलते डिलीवरी बॉय, वेटर, डिलीवरी पार्टनर्स. ओके, दिस इज द वर्ड दैट दे यूज. सो दिस इज हाउ विलियम लुट सेज दैट कि ये लैंग्वेज आपके सोचने का तरीका बदल देगी. या आर्मी की वजह से कई सारे बहुत ज्यादा डैमेज हो गया, बहुत ज्यादा डिस्ट्रक्शन हो गया, केओटिक कंडीशन आ गई, कोई वॉर हुआ, तो अब आर्मी जीतने के बाद उसको कैसे जस्टिफाई करती है? कोलैटरल डैमेज. Okay, so this creates a positive connotation of something that is very much massive or very much chaotic in nature. Okay, so ultimately it's the use of language that is making you view the same thing in a different manner. Okay, it is altering your perception about the same objective reality. This is what William Lutz says. So this basically justifies the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis that language influences your thought. You are viewing the same outer world differently because of the kind of language that you may use. So these are some of the examples that might be used to justify Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, but it is not without any criticism. It has a lot of criticism and it's not largely believed also. So पहला criticism है, it is by Boroditsky. Okay, that is the causal critique. That means कि देखो ठीक है, language और thought related तो हैं, but how can you say that it is the language that has influenced the culture, not vice versa, or language that has influenced the thought, not vice versa. ये भी तो हो सकता है कि thought ने language, क्योंकि it's the human brain that has shaped the language, तो हो सकता है उल्टा भी हो जाए कि हमारे thinking pattern की वजह से ऐसी language बनी है. So how can you be so sure that it's the language that has shaped? So the opposite can also be true, and Sapir-Whorf were silent about it. Okay. So second one is, the second critique is that if there is no thought without language, then how did the language developed initially? ठीक है, language का birth कैसे होगा? अगर according to Sapir-Whorf कि अगर language shapes up the thought, that means there was no thought before language. So then in the very initial place language develop कैसे होती है? ठीक है. And the third critique is by Noam Chomsky, okay, wherein he says that there are deep structures which are common to all the languages. Okay, there is a language acquisition device or grammar of the language is present in our mind genetically, and this deep structure are common to all language, and hence all cultures are related and have similar realities. So it's not that कि language की वजह से हम बाहर की चीजों को एक जैसे अलग अलग देखेंगे, but all cultures are related because of some language acquisition device that is present in our brain, and that और language का जो grammar है वो already हमारे brain में present है. This is what Noam Chomsky says that. Okay, आपने origin of language में Noam Chomsky को पढ़ा होगा. So this is the critique of Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and एक और critique है कि अगर Sapir-Whorf hypothesis सही है, any person cannot be bilingual in nature, क्योंकि एक लैंग्वेज है तो एक रियलिटी है, दूसरा लैंग्वेज है तो दूसरी रियलिटी है. तो हाउ कैन ए सिंगल ह्यूमन माइंड कैन हैव टू डिफरेंट रियलिटीज ऑफ द ऑब्जेक्टिव वर्ल्ड? मतलब आप इंग्लिश बोल रहे हो तो दुनिया को अलग नजर से देखोगे, और हिंदी बोलोगे तो जस्ट सेम चीज को देखने के लिए नजरिया अलग हो जाएगा. ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता. आर यू गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? सो अगर एक्सट्रीम लिंग्विस्टिक डिटर्मिनिज्म की बात करें तो वो कंप्लीटली फ्लॉड है. हाँ, तो अल्टीमेट कंक्लूजन की ये हो सकता है कि लैंग्वेज माइट इन्फ्लुएंस द थॉट, ठीक है, बट लैंग्वेज कोर्सिंग द थॉट और लैंग्वेज बीइंग द फोर्स इन इटसेल्फ इज कंप्लीटली अ फ्लॉड असम्पशन. तो इस तरीके का आप कोट कर सकते हो कि ये सही तो है, कुछ कहीं ना कहीं लैंग्वेज और थॉट में कनेक्शन तो है, but it's not like that कि language coerces the thought. It's not possible at all. So this can be the conclusion, and that marks the end of the discussion. Keep writing. Thank you so much.